Guys, we're live on YouTube. We don't give a fuck what's going on right now. We're just shooting everything live. See how that looks. Oh. Suppose we're gonna have to break some music out for y'all. See if this little contraption works over here. We got some serious shit going on online. We're gonna make this fucking Bluetooth hook up. The internet. We don't give a fuck. We're live. We went live. We're live. We're live. That's all there is to it. Live. Live fucking Ziploc. That's right, motherfuckers. We're live. That's all that matters, motherfuckers. I need to quit swearing live on the internet because we're live. We're having a good time. Let me see how this looks. This is just a test. A test of the emergency broadcast system. We will not be having any kind of Democrat set to British killings unless they follow on YouTube Live doing it. Because we don't care to be murdered by Democrat people live unless it's on YouTube. If I'm going to be the next Seth Rich, we're going to do it live on YouTube, motherfuckers. President Trump, I must let you know, I've texted your associate or ex-associate, Michael Cohen, and I'm not sure what to say about Michael right now, but it seems like Michael's a little mixed up. He should not take my advice and go on YouTube Live, so I will go on live YouTube and break it down for you. Michael Cohen called me to cut off the Tiffany Trump accounts. Unlike Stormy Daniels, Donald Trump did not sleep with his own daughter. Sorry to say, Democrats, that didn't happen. But at the end of the day, Michael Cohen did call into my phone to stop me from promoting Tiffany Trump's music, which I enjoyed very much and gave 5 stars on Amazon too. I got 5 stars on Like a Bird by Tiffany Trump. Excellent, excellent number. She does really good on that one. Let's shut the fan off so we can have a little bit better sound in this bitch. Where the hell is my sound? We're going from live. We're live with MOB. Yeah, yeah, this is it, bitch. Wake up to your coffee. Don't be duplicate, another carbon copy. You heard these words that I just copied. Go drink another coffee. Be back and you get stoppy. Hey, Democrats, and I mean all of you Hollywood. I don't believe any of you got talent. I don't even think I have talent. When it comes down to it, it matters what you're talking about the talent going into. But I know none of you are entertaining. I've watched every single one of your films, movies, videos, music. It's all a bunch of bullshit. I checked everything all of you do. Everything, especially you, Madonna. Your shit's fucked up. You're a fucked up artist. All of you are fucked up artists. Every single artist out is shit. I haven't seen anything good or heard anything good since the 80s. You're all fucking shit. In the 90s, the only reason why I was good was because of the overtone of the fake news media. If there was no O.J. Simpson, if there was no Rodney King, if there were no isolated incidents that the news put gigantic effect to, then none of that gangster, over-organized crime music would have been out in the first place, folks. We wouldn't have seen any of the pop music we saw, or R&B music, or any of that shit. R. Kelly would not be pimping at the moment if it wasn't for that. Folks, it's a lot of un-Christianity in music. I'm not Diamond and I'm not Silk. This is Ziploc. I'm a little bit more charismatic than your average artist is because I am a pushed-aside artist. Yes, I will be entering my 40s within a couple months. I'm not going to let you know the exact date, but I could give a fucking shit less. You put me on a stage, we're going to get more effect than everybody. I'm going to get more noise than everybody put together. Do you want to know why? Because I don't rely on talent. I rely on watching you stupid idiots fail so much. If all of you didn't suck so much, I wouldn't be able to watch all that 1980s footage. Listen, people, I don't mean to get all fired up at you on YouTube. Let's just have a good old day now. Yeah. This fucking shit is terrible. It's time to hook up. We're gonna hook up some fucking music so you can have some constant streaming music here. I don't see any point in this thing cutting in and out millions of times. So we're gonna fix that for you. No problemo. No problemo. I got all kinds of speakers and amps and stinking. What do you need? We've got it over here. Folks, I got the perfect cure for the situation right here. Ooh, what do we have here? It's an iPod fucking Nano. This will work perfect. Everything's going live from now on, so that way you don't have to fucking think I'm not working. And if it gets quiet over here, that just means we're not getting murdered. We're just alive over here. I love how I got the dislike. That's fucking awesome. Keep it up, folks. Give me a dislike. listing sounds off the auxiliary sound source.
Hey, stroke. Okay. That cross-line shit.
Courtesy of the Nana.
I know what it is, nigga. 7th Street, 12th Street, Southside Peak. Ain't shit the same.
Right now you're listening to the sounds of the Squirrel. Enjoy.
Legendary. DJ Win. Watch me work. Now they thuggin' it. Trade for where they buddies at. Got the heights where they muggin' it. John Paul where they buggin' at. AK with the drum text. Rockin' niggas in front of that. Same ground nigga walk on. I put his ass up under that. Shout out to that all black and the black man. See the autograph. Hoppin' out with that big fight. Make the hardest niggas have a heart attack. Hood niggas with the big guns walk around straight like the bad man. 16-year-old man. Turn the trash bag to a body bag. All the real niggas like fuck swag. No skinny jeans, let the band sag. All the young hoes moving too fast. You can slow it down, they grown ass. Truck hoes moving down. Got broke bitches looking too sad. The adult niggas trying to cuff their ass. Put trust in them and that's too bad. Ain't so fucked up. Be back for niggas if you fucked up. This jam don't say nothing. Keep it all closed. Your nuts up. The real niggas ain't get fucked, but a fuck nigga never get touched. Bitch, they head must be the main bitch trying to tell you. Talking these trash hoes with a big butt. Get your dick sucked. Broke nigga with no cash. Just an out piece to get the bitch to fuck. When you cross now with them ratchet hoes, fake shit. So you get your shit took by a bunch of niggas or a bunch of bitches. They don't give a fuck like bitch. Hey, everybody on the same shit, trying to change shit, cause ain't shit straight. And it's something about being a broke nigga, you can see it all in the bitch face. They ain't dream about it, them big freaks doing what it take to make a dollar bill. Ain't shit sweet and ain't shit safe. In the damn show, ain't no volunteer. I'm trying all of that big thing, keep back them X pills. Say loud pack, no bullshit. On the yogi bed that I in here. Styrofoam cup filled up with the same shit that make night quit. And the lean got a nigga leaning left, but the pistol only sitting right here. I be high as hell like a light bill, still ahead of niggas by light years. And I hope the ship in the right gears. I'm taking off no flight deal. I can cuff your nose with that white girl. I make a clean flip and get the green bitch. You sucker niggas ain't seen shit. Your opinion really don't mean shit. Going in like a dope, feels good in the dope smoke. Trip stack got me slow motion. I bought cigars and I'm so focused. I got a hit up for them by the slow road. Kush got the shit so cold. I'm a big dog like a great name. My click the same, it ain't no code. Talking loud and trying to move these, but a real nigga see through that shit. And I hope it's scrap when we come through, cause my little niggas like to shoot that shit. I got top lock, I got the one stand, and my little niggas that gon' do that shit. When they leave it looking like a finish line, cause my niggas just ran through that shit. I be trying to catch a nigga off guard. Fought some niggas like I'm Southpaw. Got the things popping like popcorn, trying to hit his ass in that top ball. Since a young nigga, I been that hard, I say he slaps if you ask for him. Grind a pound on the block, boy, move white and all black like a chalkboard. I got a big ass suit full of rocks, boy, 10,000 on me, no truck car. I get cash money like a hot boys, cause the truck jumping like a block car. And the jack boys don't go for it, tell them live free or they can die hard. I'm cross now when we grind hard, them bank roads will die for it. South St. Pete, ain't shit St. Bars, nigga. Hey. DJ Win. Back in the day, little group that you know who. A little nigga never wearing shoes. Bullshit like a grand school. Was a badass, I ain't got a hole. Snap the quick to the bitch to move. No, I ain't got shit to do. But believe I slap a bitch too. Where you go with a bunch of niggas? Jay Fagan, my nigga Lou. Big Duke, my nigga Big O. The alley boy, Austin, name a few. Charles Paul, I got the dog. On the nigga shot me for the 22. With me, Kirk, Big AJ, make love to me. We ain't had shit to do. Stayed on flight 13, make it 47. Make court, that nigga free when we see each other, it's on again. H12, nigga 13, who give a fuck, we both ready. Same week, we squash beef, fuck around, we might see it go together. Back then, I was selling slaps, my oldest brother, my whole batch. Told him my old girl snap, damn near had a heart attack. The sun can and the candle wax. Rolled by the top, but I burned the bottom. Dropped the candle in and let me up. And flipped the jump with that BC pop. Hand me down ass outfit. Jimmy Smoke took ass over her dumb nigga just to have it. You want to shop in that outlet. Mom really had to be late. The bullshit and you upset. She say, save your money, you want to stay fresh. Hey, I don't know, like, had to be like that shit. Maybe Long story short, you got checks and shit. I took all the checks. I made that bitch act. Roll out my ass. I got a call. Yeah, I was hard headed. Running up and down Main Street. Little niggas wanna fight me. My mama stayed on 16. Brown stayed right back to me. Bobby Miller stayed a few houses down. Big Bucky stayed a house away. I remember that shit like yesterday. Back then I was good as hell. I had the high rank with the low level. Bobby Miller looked by himself. Me and that nigga that was type of devil. Around me and I was off. Man, I seen hood niggas really getting it in. JoJo, JJ, and Adrian. I seen the pretty team come kick me in. Nothing fuck, but I knew enough. I watched older niggas move big bucks. Real shit, you should've seen the spots. The bitches were jumping like hopscotch. I fast forward a few years later. Can't wait to see some real paper. They ain't put me on first cable. First time I broke in was a damn neighbor.
Legendary, legendary.
Folks, that was just a test. I see people calling me a bot online. I think that's fucking awesome. I'm live. You can't even come in on this conversation anymore. I'm going live from now on, so that way everybody can leave me the hell alone. I'm leaving this on live all the time, 24/7, and this thing will be live. So that way, if everybody wants to think I'm not doing anything online, they can go live and go check to see if I'm online working or not. You go to my YouTube channel. You're going to see a video that says live. Click it, you'll see my studio. 365 days a year from now on, folks. I'm going full disclosure. Since the Trump administration decides to be all tricky and all those stupid assholes are being fucking ass clowns, I'm going to have to go live with everything. Listen, I'm not just going to tell you you're being recorded audio-wise. You're going to be recorded video-wise. And if we're going private, we're going private. I'll tell you ahead of time, folks. I'm not just going to put you on the phone and record you. President Trump, you need to get rid of Stephen Miller. He's a terrible speechwriter. He writes racist shit in the middle of his speeches that sound normal, but then it's some racist shit he wrote. Screw you, Stephen Miller. I'm live. And I ain't coming off live, period. For the rest of the fucking year, motherfuckers. That's 2 iPhones. Because we're going live on one, and we're making calls with the other so he can tell us what the hell is going on. Because I've been fired up ever since Michael's been in trouble. Because either I got lied to, Trump got lied to, or Trump and I both got lied to by one person, and his name is Michael Cohen. Michael, I have your phone number right here. I'm not going to air it out because I want clarity in the situation. I want Tom Arnold, Chris Cuomo, and Jake Tapper shut the fuck down. Nobody becomes friends with those people. They're a bunch of bigoted, dumb reporters who actually don't even have any sense of value to be reporting anything. So, let's get back to the beauty here. The beauty of the situation is we're going to air out One American News Live straight from Ziploc as many hours a day as YouTube allows it. Do you realize the reason why? Because this information cannot be found in other places. No, it's not copyrighted. No, it's not illegal. But nobody in the news plays this. Fake news is playing itself. We're going to play real news over here because we have access to it on the internet. I'm the New York Times reporter. I don't remember. I can't remember. I don't remember. Yeah, we're going live on TV and the internet and the news and YouTube because YouTube beats TV, the news, and everything. So if you want to see what I'm up to from now on, go to my live thing. We can chat it up, have a good old time while I'm live, and you are literally not live or whatever. I'm live. The reason why I'm live is because we're having fun with everybody. We're not getting killed like Seth Rich in the middle of a street underneath some some street light next to some city trash. If I'm getting killed, I'm getting killed on YouTube. I'm going out with the gusto, bitches. And we got a razor blade right here, so for the first 10 or 20 takers, it's a good fucking time. Have fun getting sliced, bitches. I'm live, I don't need a weapon, I don't need a gun, I've just got an X-Acto blade, a lighter, an iPod, and a toothpick. I'll toothpick your eyes out and slice your face up with this razor, okay? Let's get it going. Let's get it on, bitches. I got a bunch of people that are talking trolls inside the blank. How can you be a troll if you're live online, idiots? Let's get this thing live.
Go ahead. Phony pontification over a phony crisis.
Let me be clear, it is an urgent public health crisis, and we can no longer nibble around the edges.
There you go, bitches. Enjoy the real news.
Hiring was always a huge challenge. Endless hours on job sites with not a lot to show for it. Then, I found ZipRecruiter. They figured out hiring. I post my job, they put it all over the web, and they send me the right people, because their technology is smart. ZipRecruiter often sends me the right person in 24 hours.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Try it for free today at ziprecruiter.com/nation.
Page 2 now, the Michael Cohen effect on President Trump. The guy who vowed to take a bullet for Donald Trump is now firing repeated legal missives at the 45th president. The latest attack, another leak from Cohen and or his legal team. According to this former legal fixer, candidate Trump did know in advance about the meeting between a Russian and Donald Trump Jr.
Donald Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, now says Mr. Trump knew in advance about a 2016 meeting at Trump Tower with Russians who said they had the dirt on Hillary Clinton. Furthermore, the sources say Cohen witnessed Donald Trump Jr. telling his father about the proposed meeting and Donald Trump Sr. approving the meeting and his son and others associated with the campaign attending that meeting.
It takes for me to demonstrate any number of very serious lies by him back a year and a half ago. I don't see how he has any credibility.
But former Watergate figure John Dean had a very different take.
This is very damning for Trump. It could make him an accessory to the Russians' conspiracy. If he didn't have that knowledge but approved the meeting, it could put him in a Campaign Act violation.
President Trump's tweeting flourishes may become key evidence in the special counsel's Russia investigation. Special counsel Robert Mueller is reportedly now looking into the president's Twitter attacks on Attorney General Jeff Sessions for recusing himself from the investigation and fired FBI Director James Comey as part of the probe into possible obstructing justice.
President also tweeting this: I did not know of the meeting with my son, Don Jr. Sounds to me like someone is trying to make up stories in order to get himself out of an unrelated jam. Taxi cabs, maybe? He even retained Bill and Crooked Hillary's lawyer. Gee, I wonder if they helped him make the choice. That slimeball attorney, Lanny Davis, that would be him, who defended the sexual predator in the White House during the late 1990s. All right, so here's the question. Does any of this Cohen stuff legally hurt Donald Trump? The meeting, the payments, any of it? Joining me now from Southern California, prosecutorial attorney and legal analyst, Wendy Patrick. Wendy, somebody's lying here, obviously. Either this ambulance-chasing attorney or the President of the United States. You know, we'll let people decide who they believe and who they do not believe. But I want to look at exposure here. We have Donald Trump Jr. testifying before Congress that his dad did not know in advance. That's number one. And number two, you have Robert Mueller circling out there like a shark, salivating over stuff like this. If he ever gets to sit down, and he shouldn't, with the President of the United States, he's going to be all over stuff like this, correct?
Yeah, you say he's circling like a shark. This is blood in the water, to finish that analogy, if in fact there is something here. And that's really the big question. You have a he said at this point between the president and between Michael Cohen. So in this instance, credibility counts and motive matters. You said earlier, Michael Cohen used to say he'd take a bullet for the president. Now he's probably more likely to take a bargain in terms of a plea bargain. Sure, he hasn't been charged, but that kind of motive will definitely underlie whether or not you have to decide who you're going to believe.
Does Donald Trump Jr. have exposure here with his testimony? Because it's kind of put, if Cohen is correct, and I don't believe he is, I believe he's just trying to get out of a situation like the president is indicating.
Yeah.
But if he were to be correct, it'd be a problem for Donald Trump Jr., correct?
Of course it would. You know, lying under oath is a very serious crime, and we've seen that many of the indictments thus far have been exactly that. Not necessarily proving underlying crimes, but just lying to the authorities or lying under oath.
Process crime is what I call it.
I think that's a great way to term it, a process crime.
What do you think about the leaks themselves? Is this a violation? I know you don't practice law in the great state of New York, but does this appear to you to be a violation of the canons, the ethics of someone practicing under the bar of New York?
That would be a question if it were a confidentiality issue in terms of leaking the tapes. In terms of recording, it's a little less clear, and that may be surprising to a lot of the viewers. Clearly, it's not illegal because New York, of course, is a one-party consent tape. But the ethics rules provide very limited exceptions under which, at least according to a couple of New York ethics opinions, a lawyer can ever tape their client. And one of the reasons for that is one you might imagine. The whole reason somebody seeks a lawyer is they're in a position of vulnerability. They want to be able to speak freely, to seek out advice. And if they have to worry whether or not their lawyer's engaging in trickery, whether or not anybody can make an ethics charge stick, or whether or not it's against the law, you definitely don't ever expect it to happen. And that's characterized by what the president himself said. I can't believe Michael would do this.
Right, and so I want to repeat what you said, I want to underline what you said. In the state of New York, or really any state, any of the 50 states, it should be assumed that the attorney is not recording the client surreptitiously without their knowledge, without their consent. Is that basically not just New York, but elsewhere?
The overriding duty of loyalty, over and above what minimum ethical standards hold. Remember, those are minimum standards. The duty of professionalism and loyalty, the fiduciary duty that lawyers have to their clients, make it very difficult to justify the circumstances under which you would ever do that. And I've heard all the arguments. You want to memorialize the conversation. It's self-defense. If it's self-defense, maybe you shouldn't be representing that client. And if you have trouble memorializing, tell the client you're recording.
And maybe you shouldn't be an attorney if you're resorting to something like this. All right, now, I want to go to the payments themselves and campaign finance law. And this is very, very important because there's a lot of mis- and disinformation out there. And this portion of the Federal Elections Commission law, if the expense would exist even in the absence of the candidacy, or even if the office holder were not in office, then the personal use ban applies. In other words, the litmus test is this, the way I read it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, and that is, would this transaction, i.e. the payment to this woman, would this transaction through this attorney, Cohen, have taken place whether Donald Trump was running for office or not? And I think the answer to that question is crystal clear. It would have taken place for whatever reason.
It sounds like it would have, and you know, that's been made clear not only by Rudy Giuliani, but just by common sense. The reason a lot of these things came to light was obviously he was doing very well in the polls, and this is close in time to the election. Having said that, you know, we've all listened to that tape, and it's a partisan Rorschach test. You know, the truth is in the ear of the beholder, let's say. But take it at its worst. It's a lawyer and a client discussing something, and it's out of context. It would never be admissible in court because we have something called the rule of completeness of things. But Graham, you hit the larger issue right on the head. It's something that would not have been illegal.
Right, and the Democrats, in this case, the people are trying to persecute the press, probably some never-Trumpers in there as well. Well, they want it both ways, clearly, right? They want this to be a campaign contribution, and it should have been declared, right? So, but if he did use campaign money for this, clearly, under the law, it'd be a violation of the campaign rules and regulations. So, President Trump and then candidate Trump, he is damned if he does, or damned if he doesn't. That's the trap that's being set here.
That's right, you can't win this one, and it's one of those, you know, I like to call it a daily dose of distraction. When this tape came out, and we were all listening to it, and we listened to it 3 or 4 times, it doesn't matter.
It is a distraction. I think you hit the nail on the head. That's all this is a static and a distraction.
Yeah, and it takes away from covering all the good things that he is doing. I'm glad your network covers some of that as well.
Oh yeah, we do. And I think that the big picture here, as long as the president does not, and I repeat, does not sit down with Robert Mueller to answer questions in light of junk like this, I don't think there's any exposure to the President of the United States. What do you think?
Thank you very much.
Coming up next, the presidents and the national pastime. Baseball collides with politics as the Daily Ledger continues.
You're watching One American News Network.
Featuring now a piece of history of this republic in Los Angeles, a sketch by Ben Franklin called Join or Die, now has a new owner after the piece sold for $50,000 at auction.
This is the most, or one of the most important political cartoons in American history, and one of the earliest. It served as an icon of the Revolutionary War. And it was originally published actually 22 years before the Revolutionary War in 1754 by none other than Benjamin Franklin, who created it and published it in his newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette. And initially, originally it was to implore the British colonists to come, or colonies, the 8 colonies, to come together, and together they could fight the French. If not, they would perish. So Benjamin Franklin was a master of symbolism and propaganda to a certain extent. So, and this cartoon serves as a great example of that. Within 3 succinct and powerful words, he conveys life or death consequences, join or die, and also has a call to action. Are you in or are you out?
Join or Die, featuring that severed rattlesnake, is widely considered the most influential political rendering in American history. By the way, the only other copy of it resides in the Library of Congress. Now, another piece of our history, the intersection of presidents and the national pastime, baseball. Joining me now from Rochester, New York, author of the book, The Presidents and the Pastime, The History of Baseball and the White House, author Kurt Smith. Kurt, it's interesting. I read your book. It's a fascinating read. I loved it. I love baseball and I love politics, so it's perfect for me. But you were able to weave in not just the presidents of baseball, but to weave in history of what was going on with baseball, coincidentally, what was going on in politics for each presidential era.
Well, thank you very much, Grant. Great to be with you. Ever since I was little, I've been enamored of the presidency in baseball, and I guess it was only a matter of time before I finally got around to doing this book. But I think I've got a lot of company because these are our 2 great institutions, the National Office of the Presidency, the National Game of Baseball. It appealed to you, it appealed, I think, to tens of millions of people. So finally, this is my 17th book, and the mystery to me is not that I wrote the book, but that it took me so long to write it.
Well, they're both our national pastime, right? Politics and baseball. Early on in the book, you focus on the early presidents, if you will, not too far in our past. In our recent past, last 100, 120 years or so. We're looking at Taft and Wilson, who both cherished baseball. Harding actually owned a baseball team, not a major league team, but he owned a baseball team. And Coolidge said essentially that he thought baseball made him or others look more human. These presidents had fascinating looks at baseball back then.
Well, they do. William Howard Taft, all 300 pounds of him, incidentally, was the first to throw out a first ball to commence the beginning of the baseball season in 1910. And they had to literally extricate 2 box seats from the forerunner to Griffith Stadium to allow him to sit down and then rise to throw out the first ball. Woodrow Wilson loved the game just as much as Taft did, and might have been the first baseball commissioner had he not suffered his grievous stroke in the 2nd term. But even then, baseball was his refuge. He would get in the presidential limousine and go to Griffith Stadium. It was his sole oasis amid his ill health. Then Warren Harding was a bit of a hypocrite, and I say this with some benignity. He for example, supported prohibition, the banning of alcohol, the sale or use of it in public, but in private, he loved the game, and whenever Babe Ruth and the Yankees would come to Washington to play the Senators, he would have the Bambino down to the Oval Office, and he and the Babe would uncork the best bourbon that money could buy. And then, of course, as you say with Calvin Coolidge, he was a baseball know-nothing. But he had a wife who had been the official scorer at the University of Vermont. So in 1924, when Coolidge was trailing badly in the polls, his Republican elite, the GOP hierarchy, had the brilliant idea of basically attaching, twinning in the public mind, Coolidge to the Washington Senators, who were streaking to their first and sadly only world title. So that Biden ended the campaign with Mrs. Coolidge writing his baseball speeches and in essence talking about the armored knights of the bat and ball. The average American thought that Calvin Coolidge was baseball savant, and he won every state except the solidly Democratic South.
And the human drama of the senators is kind of a side note throughout the book, FYI. Herbert Hoover, page 62. Interesting, speaking of Babe Ruth. You have this quote: Babe made another campaign photo wearing a suit, top hat, and sign that read, "I'm for Al Smith." That seemed to end the matter, except that a few days later, a publicity flack asked Ruth if he would pose with Hoover visiting Yankee Stadium. "No, sir," said the Babe. So obviously Babe Ruth was making a bit of a political statement there, supporting Herbert Hoover's opponent in the 1928 election.
And then in 1932, he supported Franklin Roosevelt, so he was certainly consistent. In 1930, of course, Herbert Hoover, a decent and a very shy man, buried by the Depression. And Babe Ruth was asked how he could defend his salary greater than Herbert Hoover. And Ruth said famously, "But I had a better year than he did."
Yeah.
And he did.
Herbert Hoover, at one of the games you chronicle, was heckled by the crowd. "We want beer." Of course, they were in the throes of Prohibition at the time there. FDR, throughout the first pitch a couple times, broke somebody's glasses at one point, but made a significant announcement in January of 1942, and this was that baseball would proceed even during World War II.
About as significant as you can, Graham. After the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor, baseball is clueless about whether it should proceed. Should it close up shop, proceed in a diminished state? So the commissioner of baseball wrote FDR a letter. "Please, Mr. President, give us guidance on how to proceed." FDR did. The day after receiving the letter, he held a presidential press conference that shows the importance of baseball to the land, and FDR read the entirety of his letter to the commissioner, saying baseball will be played for the entirety of the war because of the importance of morale here at home, the home front, and the importance of morale to the troops abroad. He was right. Polls showed later that nothing mattered more to their morale, except for letters from loved ones here at home, than getting box scores and game accounts of baseball abroad, which is why I suggest in the book that Franklin Roosevelt be inducted posthumously into the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown. He can be said of him that cannot be said of any other member who has been inducted into baseball, that Franklin Roosevelt saved the game.
1953, Ike missed opening day to go play golf. That was a mistake. JFK had baseball early in his life. He had a baseball background. Page 209 and 210, you talk about Richard Nixon, though, who may be the preeminent example of a president who cherished baseball, followed baseball closer than any other president to grace the Oval Office, and his wife did as well, correct?
She was a great fan, and she watched the game religiously at Camp David at the Nixon compound in San Clemente, California, also in Florida, and was the first First Lady to throw out a ball in a World Series game. They won Pirates and the Orioles. But Nixon was a baseball scholar, and in fact was offered the commissionership of baseball in 1965. He also knew how to merge the game and the presidency in the public mind. 2 years before his death, he said, I think facetiously, he was talking about foreign policy, of which he was an expert, and he said, you know, the essence of diplomacy is to confuse the opposition. Then he referred to Casey Stengel, the inventor of Stengolese, the convoluted language, and he said, the essence of diplomacy, again, is to confuse the opposition. Casey always knew what he was talking about. The opposition never knew what he was talking about. If I had it, again, Nixon said, I would have named Casey Stengel Secretary of State. And Graham, the very thought still staggers.
I'm out of time, Kirk, but I have to say one thing I think you omitted, unless I missed it in the book, was Barack Obama and his mom pants. Did you have that in there?
I did.
You did. I missed you then. So you covered. You have it complete. So this is complete. Then it's a complete picture of baseball and the presidents because it includes Barack Obama walking out there with his mom pants and the ridicule that he received back in 2009 from that. Kurt, out of time. It's a great read. Thank you very much. Coming up next, Trump Twitter talk, winning on trade, losing on social media, and a Russian parody. Also ahead, why 4% GDP is only the beginning as the Daily Ledger continues.
In 1901, Vice President Theodore Roosevelt speaks before a crowd at the Minnesota State Fair. With one sentence, the emerging politician defines a new diplomatic approach. Speak softly and carry a big stick. Upon being thrust into the presidency after the assassination of William McKinley, Roosevelt's big stick ideology is put to work. Throughout his 2 terms in office, he flexes military muscle and at the same time provides a more subtle, calculated approach to foreign policy. For instance, in 1907, Roosevelt dispatches 16 battleships on a mission to circle the globe. The ships are painted white, a sign of peace. But after the 2-year mission, what's to become known as the Great White Fleet is also a sign of the U.S. Navy's growing strength. It's an effective approach, but Roosevelt gives credit where credit is due, as he attributes the saying to a West African proverb. Speak softly and carry a big stick. You will go. This is your history.
It is becoming clear that no matter what party is in power, an economy hampered by restrictive tax rates will never produce enough revenue. The first type of deficit is a sign of waste and weakness. This nation can afford to reduce taxes, but we cannot afford to do nothing. For on the strength of our free economy rests the hope of all free nations. We shall not fail that hope. For free men and free nations must prosper, and they must prevail.
Now page 4, the banner week for President Trump. Do not believe the liberal mainstream media, please. This past week is particularly emblematic of the reporting dichotomy, the dual reality that engulfs the 45th president. The yellow journalists are trying to paint this week as harmful to President Trump. Nothing could be further from the truth. The reality is the president achieved some very important milestones. On free or freer trade, the president is winning. His strategy of using tariffs as leverage to gain favorable trade deals appears to be paying off. On the economy, the mainstream media will make the robust numbers a veritable footnote while they fixate on Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels for the millionth time. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all mis- and disinformation. In fact, it's 1983 all over again. They did this to President Reagan back then, and they're attacking President Trump in similar fashion now. But we know our history. And in 1984, Reagan won the biggest landslide re-election in modern American history.
Together, we will make America great again. Great again.
Our country is doing great. Best financial numbers on the planet. Great to have USA winning again. All I can say on this one, folks, is I told you so. I told you so when you elect someone who respects the free market instead of someone who degrades the free market like Barack Obama. Donald Trump is the free market. We know what he did as a builder, as a developer, and we know what he's doing as President of the United States. He's applying free market principles back where they belong after they were shredded by the 44th president. Next tweet from President Trump. European Union representatives told me that they would start buying soybeans from our great farmers immediately, and they will be buying vast amounts of LNG. It's wonderful to hear the president say, and you got to give him credit. A lot of people say, oh, the tariffs is terrible. It is terrible. But the president knows that, but he was using them as bargaining chips. It's painful to watch. But there was the ends kind of justify the means here. There was a light at the end of the tunnel, and the president knew that. We didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, and now the president's coming out and saying what he should be saying. There should be 0 tariffs and 0 subsidies, period, end of story. Next tweet from President Trump. The United States will impose large sanctions on Turkey for their long-time detainment of Pastor Andrew Brunson, a great Christian family man and wonderful human being. He is suffering greatly. This innocent man of faith should be released immediately. This is how you use tariffs right here. You put a stranglehold on our enemies. And a lot of people would say, oh, Turkey's not an enemy. It's a member of NATO. In my estimation, Turkey is a problem. And the president is right to be imposing sanctions on a country like Turkey, as well as China. Use tariffs to drive these enemies of the United States into submission. Next tweet from President Trump. I'm very concerned that Russia will be fighting very hard to have an impact on the upcoming election. Based on the fact that no president has been tougher on Russia than me, they will be pushing very hard for the Democrats. They definitely don't want Trump. I don't know. All you can say on that one is touche. Touche, Mr. President. Next tweet from President Trump reads like this: Twitter shadow banning prominent Republicans not good. We will look into this discriminatory and illegal practice at once. Many complaints. I had to look up what shadow banning was. Essentially, it's only allowing your tweets or your posts on social media essentially to be used and viewed by you instead of being out there in public circulation. This is a private company, Twitter is, and we have a choice as consumers whether to use Twitter or not, or Facebook or not. So it's up to us. In my estimation, the government really has no role here. It would be nice, though, if some conservative could come up with a different kind of Twitter that maybe is a little bit more fair to everyone who uses something like Twitter. So the president is correct. Once again, this republic is doing great again. More jobs available than people looking for work. The economy is beginning to soar. Business investment is roaring. So let the mainstream media distort like they did with Reagan, because we know our history. Despite the media, just like 35 years ago, the American people in their hearts know the truth. Coming up next, Democrats picking the low-hanging fruit of the opioid problem as the Daily Ledger continues.
Hiring was always a huge challenge. Endless hours on job sites with not a lot to show for it. Then, I found ZipRecruiter. They figured out hiring. I post my job, they put it all over the web, and they send me the right people, because their technology is smart. ZipRecruiter often sends me the right person in 24 hours.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Try it for free today at ZipRecruiter.com/nation.
Page 5 now. Political low-hanging fruit. Two loudmouth Democrats are harvesting the easy pickings of the opioid crisis. Now, not trying to say it's not a problem. Why is it my problem? Yes, I know these drug addicts commit crimes sometimes and clog up our emergency rooms sometimes. But what is government's role here? Is it to throw money at the issue? The answer to that is yes. Among rhino Republicans and virtually all Democrats in Congress, especially the loudmouths. One from the Senate, the other from the House at a roundtable in Baltimore.
And let me be clear, it is an urgent public health crisis, and we can no longer nibble around the edges. Drugs are killing 175 people in this nation, including several people in this city, every single day. Every day. And by the estimate of the Trump administration, it's causing harm and costing us as much as $500 billion per year. However, only about 10% of the people with the disease of addiction are getting the treatment. And I emphasize the disease. The disease. And until we get people the treatment and the support they need, we will not tackle this emergency, and the people who could have been saved will continue to die.
We came up with a proposal for $100 billion over the next 10 years, that's $10 billion a year, that will go directly into the communities that are fighting this problem. It will go directly into the front lines. And people will know it's going to be here, not just for 1 year, it's going to be here over a long enough period of time that you can build a real and meaningful response. That's what we want to do. We want to turn this crisis around. We propose this bill because we see a public health emergency, but we propose it because we have optimism. We know what we can do if we'll put the resources in. This is also a bill that holds big pharma, drug companies, and their CEOs accountable for their part in this crisis.
Now, Pocahontas is doing this for pure political gain. After all, she's running for president. However, if these two really cared about heroin addiction, they would do something about the wide open southern border. Most of the opioid supply is imported here. So how about a round table down along the southern border? Joining me now on the Daily Ledger page 5 beat from Washington, D.C., politics editor with the Washington Examiner, W. James Antle III. Jim, the DEA 2005 is reporting that most of the heroin comes from Mexico. So this is a no-brainer. What these people are doing, Warren and the rest in Washington, D.C., who are locking onto this opioid problem, is they're treating a symptom and they're not going after the problem in many cases. Not across the board, but in many cases, they're not going after the problem, which is their sworn constitutional duty.
Right, and it's also a way to add something to the Democratic agenda that is superficially not very controversial, but goes with the two main controversial agenda items that they seem to be prioritizing in this election cycle, and that's socialism and open borders.
Yeah.
So they're not really going to address the situation at the border. They seem to want to exacerbate it in any way that they can, and they clearly want a larger federal government role in healthcare and really in everything else. When we've been doing war on drugs for over 30 years, we've been plowing money into various government programs. Money in government programs, it's fairly debatable whether that's really the main issue here.
As Hedley Lamar would say in Blazing Saddles, we need a harumph on this one. As I pointed out at the top here, this is really political low-hanging fruit. I don't believe this is a crisis. I believe it is a problem, and it needs to be addressed. But what role government in something like this? Why do my taxpayer dollars go after this problem when somebody files bankruptcy? My taxpayer dollars shouldn't be helping the person who's filing bankruptcy. This is to other elements of our society, but this is an individual problem that, in my opinion, government has no role here.
Yeah, it definitely became a very big issue in the 2016 campaign. President Trump ultimately appointed a task force. Kellyanne Conway's been very involved in the opioid issue. A number of battleground states, such as New Hampshire, were clearly very hard hit by a number of opioid deaths, by the level of addiction that's going on. So I think clearly whenever there is a crisis, clearly whenever there is a situation, the first impulse of the political class is to get the government involved somehow. And that is the solution to the problem, when in fact government frequently makes a number of problems much worse.
Just throw money at it. That's the solution oftentimes in Washington, D.C., when they should be doing something very simple, and that is securing our southern border and stopping the flow of illegal drugs coming from the south to the north. That would be the United States. Jim, thank you. Coming up next, along the Hollywood Walk of Fame, pro-Trumpers attacked for merely supporting the president, as the Daily Ledger continues.
Your nation, your news. One American News Network.
Page 6 now, looking at GDP under Barack Obama, whose policies strangled the U.S. economy. And even better news is, this is only the beginning.
The U.S. economy expanded at its fastest pace in almost 4 years. Gross domestic product grew at a 4.1% annualized rate in the second quarter. That was in line with economists' expectations. What's more, the previous quarter's growth was revised upward. Fueling that growth, spending by consumers and the government, and farmers who rushed shipments of soybeans to China before trade tariffs took effect early July. Fannie Mae's chief economist Douglas Duncan says this could mark the peak in quarter.
In part, there was some pulling forward of activity prior to the invoking of some tariffs that was part of what was going on. The initial impulse of the tax bill and the stimulus that went along with that. So we think it will slow down, maybe 2 or 3 quarters in the second half, or somewhere between 2.5 and 2 and 3 quarters.
Strong second quarter growth keep the Federal Reserve on track to raise interest rates 2 more times this year. But economists question whether that growth can continue at this pace in the face of trade tensions and rising rates.
Stimulus? Stimulus was Obama. Typical mainstream media spin. Things are okay, but bad times are coming. Wrong. But why? Why should this robust GDP number surprise anyone? This program has been predicting GDP at 4% or higher following the election of Donald Trump. Why? Answer. History. Conservatives know our history. Lower taxes plus less government regulation equals economic boom. Joining me now, the founder of the American Truth Project and Daily Ledger contributor, Barry Nussbaum. Barry, we set up this program about 18 months ago. People were talking about maybe 3-4% GDP. I said, yeah, easy. That's a low number. I'm thinking even higher now when you consider one thing alone, and there are many factors here, Barry, but one thing alone, this money that's overseas being repatriated. You're talking trillions and trillions of dollars. That money's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, Graham, the big change has been a complete cutback in the amount of regulations that strangled business in the last 2 years of the Obama administration. Many of those regulations rushed through at the last minute. Freeing up American business at the same time confidence is growing in the consumer side of the economy is creating massive growth. This literally could be the best year for economic growth since 2005 if the number just stays above 3%. Trump's current economic advisor and the last economic advisor in the White House are both saying because the growth is in consumer confidence and consumption by consumers, this growth has wheels and will continue. It's a fantastic report for the Trump administration. I wonder how the press will report it.
Yeah, I'm looking at numbers in my mind, reminiscent of 1984. And if folks don't remember what happened in 1984, I would suggest Googling GDP in 1984, in 1 quarter alone. It was spectacular, and I'm seeing a similar trend here. Now, this socialist candidate who wants to do exactly the opposite of what President Trump is doing in the White House, the socialist candidate, Bernie Sanders' protege out of New York, this student running for Congress, she's got a wonderful idea to pay for all her socialist programs.
Yes, she does. The plan is to take all the money she can from everybody else and redistribute it. As Margaret Thatcher said, the problem with socialism, Graham, is eventually you run out of other people's money. Yeah. The other people's money that this candidate wants to use is massive increases on individual income tax, massive increases in corporate income tax, and massive carbon taxes on fossil fuels, and finally, a massive cut in the U.S. military. It's a prescription to completely collapse the American economy that we just talked about in so glowing terms.
No,
She's a part-time bartender and a part-time student. She's not qualified to run the country.
She's a full-time socialist, that's for sure. She's learned massive amounts from Bernie Sanders. Real quick, it ain't easy being a Trump supporter in Hollywood lately. Just this week, first, Trump's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame vandalized, and then within 24 hours, human beings who support Trump vandalized.
Along with a person of mixed race who were supporting Trump, the white person was ridiculed for being white. The mixed race person was called the N-word, and then F Trump, F Trump, F Trump. There is no shortage of racism when you want to attack the president. Everything is okay because the press says it's okay, Graham. Remember, death threats against the president, rape threats against the first lady, kidnapping threats against the first son, and the media doesn't condemn it, so it makes the mob okay to do and say whatever they want.
Frankly, it's embarrassing. It turns my stomach. And I'll tell you one thing, that star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame needs 24-hour service protection, to say the least. Barry, thanks. Coming up next, why the greatest constitutional threat to the modern Democrat Party is Donald Trump. Daily Ledger continues.
We will not walk in fear one of another. We will not be driven by fear into an age of unreason if we dig deep in our history and our doctrines. And remember that we are not descended from fearful men. Not from men who fear to write, to speak, to associate, and to defend causes that were for the moment unpopular. Each moment in
history is a fleeting time, precious and unique. But some stand out as moments of beginning, in which courses are set that shape decades or centuries. What kind of a nation we will be, what kind of a world we will live in, whether we shape the future in the image of our hopes, is ours to determine.
Oh my, that's right.
One American News looks back to moments in history that shaped our country and our world and makes us who we are.
Hemingway's succinct and lucid style had a tremendous impact on modern literature. As indicated by his former home near Havana, Cuba, Hemingway's adventurous persona often competed with his writing. After being severely wounded in World War I, he became a foreign correspondent in Europe. He achieved fame in the late 1920s with two novels, The Sun Also Rises and A Farewell to Arms, which depicted the immorality of war in blunt terms. For Whom the Bell Tolls was equally stark about the political betrayals of the Spanish Civil War.
Hemingway.
And The Old Man and the Sea offered a modern parable of man's tortured search for fulfillment. An avid hunter, Hemingway died of a self-inflicted shotgun wound in 1961.
Good Lord. Killed by a self-inflicted shotgun wound. Good Lord.
Welcome to the Backpage Viewer Mail. Now this email comes to us from Barbara. She lives in Abington, Pennsylvania. Barbara writes, "Hi Graham, simply love your show. You have opened my eyes to so many injustices and problems. You even got me to register to vote for Trump in 2016 after I was inactive since the early 80s. Last night you spoke of the illegal immigrant who attacked his wife with a chainsaw. Did you hear of the illegal immigrant who killed 2 law enforcement officers?" Well, Barbara, yes, I heard about that criminal. Those officers, Kate Steinle and thousands of other Americans, would be alive today if all of these temporary politicians simply respected the law. It's truly disgusting. Yes to zero tolerance. No to open borders. Yes to deporting all illegals because they are all criminals by definition. As for inspiring you to vote in 2016, great, wonderful. If I do nothing else on this program, encouraging Americans to vote is the greatest accomplishment, bar none.
Yes,
congratulations, and thanks for watching. Weaponizing Trump, Putin. Democrats are trying to use the meeting in Helsinki as an election wedge issue as well as another vehicle on the road to impeachment. The fact is, the president did nothing wrong. Our ledger registered. Do you approve of the way President Trump represented the interests of the United States at NATO and during his meeting with Vladimir Putin? Here are the results. 89% say yes, they approve, and do not believe the media and the fascist left. 11% say no, he embarrassed the country. We'd like to hear from you. Please send us your comments to tdl@oann.com. Please include the city and state in which you reside. Some final thoughts now. The greatest constitutional threat to the Democrat Party. Democrats in Congress have completely abdicated their sworn constitutional duties and are now nothing more than political hack operatives who are advancing a radical ideology. That's it. There's no other conclusion that can be reached. The Democrats on Capitol Hill are a bunch of ideological sellouts, all of them. There isn't a single constitutionally conservative Democrat in Congress. And you don't have to be a Republican to be constitutionally conservative. Not a single Democrat holds ultimate fidelity to the Constitution over political party. And so, the Democrats on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee have exposed themselves for what they are, non-constitutional partisans who hate the Bill of Rights and hate President Trump because he defends the Constitution.
I understand that despite its ability to stop this ridiculous notion, the State Department is about to allow internet posting of do-it-yourself 3D printable firearm blueprints. Why on earth would the Trump administration make it easier for terrorists and gunmen to produce undetectable plastic guns? I remain deeply concerned by the administration's incoherent and contradictory views.
So, Senator Menendez obviously needs some constitutional help, don't you think? Why would Americans want the right to make, keep, and bear arms? Because of you, Senator, because of you and your Democrat colleagues couldn't care less about the truth that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was trying to deliver about U.S.-Russia relations. You senator, care only about pandering for votes in order to stay in power, in order to advance a radical ideology. And right now, the biggest impediment to implementing this anti-constitutional agenda is Donald J. Trump. This edition of the Daily...
Why is that stopped? Fucking tell me the internet shut off, guys. I'm trying to be fucking live all the time. It's not gonna happen if the internet keeps shutting the fuck off. What the fucking fuck? Fucking fuck, folks. Fucking fuck. What the fucking fuck? And fuck. It's probably the whole channel locking up because I'm on some real news shit. They're not letting me put real news out. Folks, I'm sorry. Somehow I'm still alive though, at least. Is this thing getting hot? How the hell is this getting hot? Oh, my whole computer was going to sleep, folks. Six dislikes. Fuck you, motherfuckers.
Consumer spending. These numbers are very, very sustainable. This isn't a one-time shot. I happen to think we're going to do extraordinarily well in our next report, next quarter.
First quarter growth for 2018 was up 2.2%, rising to 4.1% for the second quarter.
Billions of dollars are pouring into the United States coffers. Billions of dollars. But we're getting jobs. We're getting money coming in. We're respected, and eventually the steel prices will really start to go down because all of these new plants are going to be competing against each other. But we won't have foreign countries dumping, that's the word they use, dumping, steel all over the place and destroying our factories, destroying our plants, destroying our companies, and destroying our jobs.
A few days ago, President Trump nearly avoided a transatlantic trade war by agreeing to work on eliminating steel tariffs with the president of the European Commission.
And the president is continuing to play a heavy role in the 2018 primaries. In a tweet Friday, the president threw his support behind incumbent GOP Congressman David Kustoff from Tennessee. He claims Kustoff, who is representing the state's 8th district, is a champion for his agenda and loves the military and veterans. The president declares the congressman has his full and total endorsement. Kustoff is facing off against Dr. George Flynn, who has spent almost $3 million of his own money to take down the one-term lawmaker in the primary. Voters head to the polls on August the 2nd. And a new poll shows Republican Ron DeSantis and Democrat Gwen Graham are clear front-runners in Florida's primary, the gubernatorial races, that is. According to a Mason-Dixon poll of 625 likely voters in Florida, DeSantis holds a double-digit lead over his primary challengers at 41%. Adam Putnam comes in second place for Republicans with 29%. The poll credits President Trump's endorsement of DeSantis as the driving force behind the surging figures. On the Democrat side, Graham holds a 9% lead over her second-place challenger, Philip Levine. The Democrats are confident about her prospects as she holds the highest favorability ratings in the poll. In the meantime, the president says he wants to campaign for 25 GOP congressional candidates before the November elections. The president made the comments in an interview Friday where he rejected the idea of Democrats taking back the House. He said he directed John Kelly to provide him with a list of 25 GOP candidates who he can campaign for. The president says his endorsements thus far have carried a lot of weight in contested races. He referenced Georgia gubernatorial candidate Brian Kemp, who will be for the GOP nomination following the president's endorsement. President Trump also said he plans on hitting the campaign trail 6 or 7 times a week once the midterms are 60 days out. And the president meets with his National Security Council as the administration looks to prevent cyber attacks ahead of the midterm elections. Most of the president's cabinet, with officials saying they worry will seek to disrupt the elections. The talks follow comments by the president this week in which he expressed concerns Russia may try to influence the election in favor of the Democrats. In the meantime, lawmakers on the left say the administration has not done enough to improve on the flaws from the 2016 election. However, earlier this month, the Election Assistance Commission dished out $348 million to improve election infrastructure in states around the country. One America's Emerald Robinson has more.
Emerald, what's up?
Mr. President Trump invited members of his cabinet, including Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and others, to the White House on Friday for the National Security Council's meeting on election security. The meeting comes as the administration faces criticism for allegedly not having a strategy to counter election interference in the 2018 midterm, as well as not having a point person to lead an effort to counter such interference. Now, the Department of Homeland Security says it's the lead on electoral cyber security. These different agencies are very interconnected in their preparation for the 2018 midterms. However, some critics say that that is also something that the National Security Council should be focused on. Now, speaking at a forum last week, the FBI Director Christopher Wray said that the FBI have not observed any efforts by Russia to interfere in any part of the election infrastructure for the 2018 midterms. And this meeting also comes in the same week that the White House decided to push a planning for a Putin meeting, a Vladimir Putin meeting in the fall to the beginning of 2019. However, President Trump visiting Moscow following a formal invitation.
And the Trump administration is headed to create an Arab alliance in the Gulf. That's in an effort under Iran's the Nagro. And they're looking for to implement an institution of Sunni countries, include countries like Saudi Arabia, with the Gulf making it in Iran. On Ziplok, countries are missile defense. Also, showing up and about it. That's the top set of TBC, which begins October the 12th. As documents of woman to gain an admiral in the Navy. And the president posted a quote of Admiral Eileen, who recently
Plenty of lines, haha.
Dirk had said it was a nice distinction to be recognized as the first. However, she wanted to make sure she used her notoriety to spread a positive message. The president said, Eileen did just that, and America is forever grateful. Dirk joined the Navy back in 1940. Sir, is it the nerve? To Navy Chief Director before her retirement 3 years later. The White House is awarding a fallen Colorado soldier that is, with a posthumous Medal of Honor for heroism that he displayed in Afghanistan. On Friday, the president announced Air Force Tech Sergeant Johnny Chapman will be the first U.S. airman to receive the award since the Vietnam War. Chapman, a combat controller, was killed in 2002 when he worked with a SEAL Team 6 to save a stranded Navy SEAL in Takur. The sergeant rushed toward enemy gunfire to give his team time to find safety and continued fighting enemy combatants until his death. Chapman's widow will accept the medal on her husband's behalf during a White House ceremony on August 22nd. All right, straight ahead on One American News, we are learning new information about a fatal shooting in a Texas retirement home, what authorities have revealed. While officials in Philadelphia will no longer give ICE agents access to an important database. Details.
That's bullshit.
We are coming right back.
The nation's tallest stone structure, the Washington Monument, was built to commemorate America's first president and towers over the Capitol, which also bears his name. As father of our country, George Washington served as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army before overseeing the Continental Congress and drafting the U.S. Constitution. After 8 years as president, he died in 1799, prompting Congress to authorize a memorial. It was designed in the shape of an Egyptian obelisk to recall the timelessness of ancient civilizations. Construction began in 1848, but was halted for 22 years, starting in 1854, due to a lack of funds and the American Civil War. The monument was finally finished in 1884, with over 36,000 stones reaching almost 555 feet tall. And at the time...
Thumbs up, me guys, because this is fun.
This is your history, your news.
The Daily Ledger provides your daily dose of the truth.
This country can ban non-U.S. citizens anytime and for any reason, even based on religion, because it's our country, not theirs.
The bold.
If the president can't drain the swamp directly and all at once, then getting the monsters to jump out of the Washington murk on their own is just as effective.
The constitutional.
Why the Comey testimony? This president might be guilty of being brash and brutally direct at times, but constitutionally speaking, there is not one shred of evidence that President Trump has done anything wrong.
Need another reason to watch the Daily Ledger?
Even when I'm wrong, I'm right.
I need a fan to blow over on that thing.
And welcome back. An investigation is underway in Massachusetts after 2 officers and a suspect are shot. It all started Friday in Falmouth. That's about an hour south of Boston.
They got shot.
The police were responding to a call of disorderly conduct. Suspect came out of the home and opened fire. That's when a shootout ensued.
They got shot.
One officer's head was grazed by a bullet, and the other was shot 3 times, twice in his bulletproof vest.
Good
Suspect
Lord.
has been identified as 21-year-old.
Take their gun licenses.
Was shot multiple times. He is now in custody. Both officers are expected to survive. One has already been released from the hospital. And at least 5 people are dead after a shooting at a retirement home and another home in Robstown, Texas. That's a suburb of Corpus Christi. Right now, little is known about the incident. However, police say 2 victims and a suspect were killed during a shooting at Matama Manor Nursing Home. 2 additional male victims were found at the suspect's home. Of course, we will stay on top of this story and bring you any more information as it becomes available. California Governor Jerry Brown asking President Trump to declare a state of emergency in the Golden State.
No.
The car fire continues to rip through Shasta.
That is not an emergency.
In a letter to the president,
You're bugging out about nothing.
Governor Brown said federal assistance is needed to save lives and protect property, public health, and safety.
Good luck, Jerry Brown. Get a smaller state, idiot.
Firefighting and relief efforts related to the car fire.
Try getting used to some fire.
500 structures and threatens to
That's
up to
nothing.
5,000 others.
Big deal. Don't vote Democrat.
On this deadly wildfire.
Goodness gracious. As long as there's no people getting hurt.
Under record-shattering temperatures, thousands of firefighters are working around the clock to contain at least 12 fires burning up and down California. In Northern California, new evacuation orders were issued after high winds drove the so-called car fire east into the city of Redding when flames jumped the Sacramento River.
Oh my God, everybody's like panicking and going crazy and everybody's just trying to leave.
At least 2 fatalities have been reported since the blaze broke out
2
on Monday in Shasta
fatalities.
County, and several firefighters have been injured. An unknown number of civilians have also been transported to nearby hospitals to be treated for burns. Officials say 3-digit temperatures and strong winds have made containment efforts difficult.
This fire is extremely dangerous and moving with no regard for what's in its path.
More than 100 structures have been damaged or destroyed, while hundreds more remain under threat. Fire crews have blamed the cause of the flames on a vehicle malfunction. Meantime, the Ferguson fire that broke out earlier this month
has prompted the closure of Yosemite National Park as more than 3,400 firefighters across the country work to combat the blaze.
I'm almost there. Go your house. We'll talk to you. I just actually there. When we came into the park, it wasn't. I guess it was pretty clear. But then as we got closer in, it started to get a little more foggy, I guess, more ashy.
According to CAL FIRE, one firefighter was killed and several others were injured while battling the flames. Officials say the fire is taking a huge toll on tourism, as July is usually the second busiest month for Yosemite Park, which hasn't been shut down due to a fire in nearly 3 decades. Further south in San Bernardino, near Los Angeles, the Cranston fire has forced thousands of people to evacuate, as hundreds of homes remain under threat. A criminal investigation into the fire led to the arrest of a 32-year-old man who has been charged with 15 felony counts, including aggravated arson. The state's Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency for the Carr Fire and Cranston Fire. Jonas Chagagas, One America News.
And a southwestern Michigan city passes out cases of bottled water Friday to people with contaminated drinking water. On Thursday, health officials in the city of Parchment found health-harming chemicals called PFAS in a water system supplying 3,000 residents. PFAS can cause people to have fertility problems, damage immune systems, and increase the risk of cancer. Kalamazoo County Sheriff assured residents that officials are actively addressing the problem.
We've had people show up and want to volunteer just to hand out water. We even have people call and say, can I bring water to give? We really appreciate that, but what I want everybody to understand is we've got water. We have a lot of water right now, and we have some stores in the background that if we needed them, they're available.
And the Kalamazoo County Health Department outlined a short-term plan on its website to address the contamination and will notify Parchment residents when it is safe for them to use the water in their homes once again. Well, Philadelphia police are ending their relationship with ICE. In an announcement Friday, Mayor Jim Kennedy said the department will no longer give the agency access to the city's real-time arrest database. He claims the department's classified information allowed ICE to wrongly arrest people who did not commit crimes. The decision comes as a 10-year agreement between ICE and Philadelphia. It is set to expire at the end of August. The State Department has since responded to that decision, saying it's irresponsible and will lead the city to harbor criminal aliens. Two of California's biggest and richest cities are both facing a public health issue which centers around the growing homeless population. Here's One America's Eddie McCullough.
California, the land of opportunity with a growing homeless population. Los Angeles has one of the worst problems in the nation, and it's not getting any better. Local reports indicate the homeless population for the greater LA metro area is up 75% since 2012. There are about 55,000 people in the area lacking permanent shelter, with at least 29,000 living on the streets. The increase comes as the region faces a shortage in available housing and rising rental rates, leaving some to end up on gang and drug-infested Skid Row.
We then have to create opportunities so that we can have transitional housing or more vouchers and assistance on the ground in those places. So not everyone has to be sent down here.
Los Angeles voters approved 2 measures to allocate new tax dollars to help combat the issue, but the funding still falls about $200 million short, leaving housing and service programs overwhelmed. In the last few months, Los Angeles has faced a public health problem surrounding a hepatitis A outbreak, which started in San Diego. And to the north, a new report shows the streets of San Francisco are comparable to those of third world countries. In a recent investigation, trash, needles, and feces were found on a majority of the 153 blocks surveyed in the downtown area. Sanitation workers are said to collect about 12,000 needles from city streets and parks each month. Research scientists say the streets of San Francisco are now dirtier and perhaps more contaminated than the slums of India, Brazil, and Kenya.
If you do get stuck with these disposed needles, you can get HIV, hepatitis C, hepatitis B, and the fecal matter could possibly into air. And if you happen to inhale that, it can also go into your intestine.
The city currently spends about $30 million a year to keep the streets clean, including power washing sidewalks to ward off diseases. Last year, the Public Works Department received 20,000 complaints about feces on the streets. County supervisors say they need more revenue to combat the city's homeless and drug abuse problem. Eddie McCubbin, One America News.
California teenager is being charged with burglary after he allegedly broke into a couple's home to ask for their Wi-Fi password. The 17-year-old was arrested earlier this week and was also charged with prowling and providing false information to an officer. According to police, the 16-year-old couple woken up in the middle of the night to the teenager who was just standing over them. The homeowners reportedly forced the suspect out and called police, who found the teenager about a block away. Police believe the suspect may be tied to another home break-in that happened a day earlier. The teenage suspect is currently being held in Santa Clara County Juvenile Hall. And the head of CBS becomes the latest high-profile media exec to be accused of sexual misconduct. In a statement Friday, CBS said it is investigating claims against CEO Les Moonves, alleging he made unwanted advances for women, including kissing and touching. The accusations, which came to light in a report by the New Yorker, reportedly stem from incidents that go as far back as 20 years ago.
We talked to experts who say this is an opportunity to look at how our most important corporate institutions treat vulnerable people coming forward with these kinds of charges. Because this is a set of individuals and a company that has been followed by these allegations for a long time. Anytime you do a story about something this serious, these kinds of allegations, the commitment to fairness is absolute and really important for everyone involved. And CBS got a very long window in which to respond to every facet of this, and we made sure that every one of those responses was reflected in this story.
Meanwhile, shares of CBS have dropped roughly 6% since news of the alleged harassment. Still to come on One America News, global leaders of the BRICS bloc signed a declaration highlighting the importance of an open world economy. Plus, a labor shortage in Germany is threatening the country's economy. More, thousands of jobs remain vacant. We'll be right back.
Hiring was always a huge challenge. Endless hours on job sites with not a lot to show for it. Then, I found ZipRecruiter. They figured out hiring. I post my job, they put it all over the web, and they send me the right people, because their technology is smart. ZipRecruiter often sends me the right person in 24 hours.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Try it for free today at ZipRecruiter.com/nation.
BRICS group signed a declaration geared toward global trade and alliances at the bloc's 10th annual summit. Here's more from Friday's meeting in Johannesburg.
Leaders of the BRICS bloc of emerging economies signed a declaration supporting an open and inclusive multilateral trading system under World Trade Organization rules. Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa agreed to fight unilateralism and protectionism.
The biggest message is that we should work together, and in working together to address issues of common interest amongst the 5 member countries, one of them being that of actually making sure that we do not, find ourselves behind the curve in terms of the 4th Industrial Revolution, and that we also continue to speak with one voice in defending multilateralism, which is under attack.
It comes in the wake of tariff threats by US President Donald Trump. The meeting of BRICS leaders is the first since the US administration launched a push to rebalance trade multilateralism that Trump has deemed unfair.
And companies in Germany are facing a shortage of qualified applicants for skilled labor jobs. Scarlett Spitzkedici has more about the concerns of the future of vocational training.
Europe's economic powerhouse is facing an increasing skilled labour shortage. Germany's vocational training programme, which involves several years of on-the-job learning alongside theory lessons, is credited with giving it the European Union's lowest youth jobless rate. But its popularity now appears to be waning. More than a third of Germany's companies couldn't fill all of their training places last year, leaving 49,000 training positions vacant. It's a dangerous trend in a country where hundreds of thousands of aging employees are already leaving the labour market every year.
In concrete terms, it means companies will have big problems processing the orders they've taken on. That leads to them having to reject orders, which leads to the German economy not developing as well as it could. And that means we will lose jobs.
The vocational training program is widely admired abroad. It's been exported in various forms to countries around the globe. Now the government faces the challenge of reviving its popularity at home. But that could be an uphill battle. Last year, the number of vacancies for training positions was at its highest for more than 20 years.
And the Prime Minister of Greece is taking full responsibility for the devastating wildfire that killed 87 people so far. Friday, Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras took full responsibility for the tragedy in hopes of ending outrage following criticism of the government's slow response. A criminal investigation is currently underway into the cause of the fire, as authorities suspect that it may have been started intentionally. Tsipras weighed in during a cabinet meeting whether government authorities reacted in a professional manner.
I will not hide that I am overwhelmed by mixed feelings at the moment, as I imagine all of you are. Pain, devastation for the human lives that were unfairly and unexpectedly lost, but also anguish at whether we acted correctly in everything we should have. If we reacted correctly during the critical moments, if we could have done something more, if we could have saved even one more life of those that were lost unfairly.
And the Prime Minister added his government will move quickly to provide emergency and financial assistance. President Ziplok has more as questions mount over the country's devastating forest fires.
3 days of national mourning ended on Friday in